money is at the base layer of society. Like, society actually only works because of money.
What these things are really going to be for moving forward, ideally, is bringing people who are new to Bitcoin. There's a lot of what I call Bitcoiners here already tonight. These are people who understand what Bitcoin is. They believe in what Bitcoin's going to do, and we don't need to sell any of you really, right? You understand what this is all about. But you also bring friends, you bring acquaintances, you bring colleagues, business partners, whatever the case may be, who don't understand Bitcoin. It's amazing, really, the number of people out there who don't know anything about it. So what we want to do moving forward is try to just educate people on a really basic level. All right. So with that said, Guy Swan, what would you say? Like if you were talking, there's a lot of new people new to Bitcoin here. What would you say to somebody if you're sitting down with them? Like, why did you come to this thing? What do you think is important about it? Why does it even matter?
Talking about this event?
I'm talking about Bitcoin.
Talking about Bitcoin. Okay. Well, I think...
I don't know. He's like, I don't know why I came to this event. You guys dragged me in here.
Because it sounded like a lot of fun. So, Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
You know, a lot of people mistake this thinking that this is like another app that you can get for your phone that has payments. It's like, oh, I have Cash App and I have Venmo and I can use Bitcoin. And I think there's a fundamental, like that's the very shallow and completely understandable view of Bitcoin from the outside. And when you start kind of peeling it away and looking at like what it actually is, money is at the base layer of society. Like, society actually only works because of money. Like, one of the fundamental things that money does is allows you or I or anybody else here to trade, to make a communication of things that we did and things that we value, work that we produced, with someone that we know nothing about. A credit, we can't do that with. I have to know you. I have to know that you're good for your shit, you know? Like, I can't accept credit from somebody that I don't trust. You have to trust someone. But I can't accept money from someone I don't trust. Which means that we can coordinate, we can cooperate, we can work on massive projects with thousands of people, with branches of, you know, this corner of the economy, this industry, and all of these things can actually come together. Like, think about, like, there's a great piece by Leonard Reed called I, Pencil. And it's about the infinite complexity of the entire structure and the millions of people operating together to make a single pencil. And that there's not actually, his thesis is that there's not a single person on the planet that can actually make a pencil. Like, you have to, like, the elements, like the paint on it, the carbon inside of it, the rubber from the eraser, they come from like 6 different corners of the planet. And nobody knows how to do all of those things. But they are all somehow naturally and uncontrolled. Like, no central hierarchy. Like, there's no like pencil czar that's up like telling everybody what to do. But just from the natural cooperation and the incentives, people are able to communicate, pull all of these millions of different things together to make a number 2 pencil, a wooden pencil that is so cheap to produce that it's practically free. And this is only possible because you can actually communicate value in an incorruptible way. When you start to corrupt that mechanism, it falls apart. That is the formation of society. The ability to work with, to be able to trade with people that you do not have to trust.
Okay, so when you start to corrupt that mechanism, what do you mean by that?
You can't build a house if the size of your inch keeps changing.
Okay.
You can't measure anything if, like, you can't have like a house plan if, like, money is a language. It's a language. You know, if I'm trying to explain something to you and before the end of the conversation, the words that I'm speaking don't mean the same thing to you as they mean to me, and like the definition changes over time, well, then we can't communicate. We don't, the ability to communicate starts to break down. Like we might lose 2%, 5% of that communication medium. And value is like an interesting thing when you think about it in the context of language, because it's subjective. It is a network technology. I think that's a lot of things that something that's lost on people too. When I talk about like it's the foundation of society, is when we are using a common money, what we're doing is we're using a common network. You know, it's not even like a lot of the details are even kind of arbitrary. It's like stoplights or something, like on a street. Like the rules don't really matter. Like green could mean stop, red could mean go. You know, but as long as everybody's in consensus as to which one to do, the intersection works.
Right.
You know.
Okay, so everybody here is familiar with the U.S. dollar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't matter if somebody's from another country or whatever the case may be. We talked a little bit about the corruption of that signaling mechanism, which in most people's case is the U.S. dollar.
Yeah.
What do you mean when you corrupt the mechanism, in particular to the U.S. dollar? How has that been corrupted?
That the rules aren't the same for everybody. You know, like fairness matters. And then in addition is that if it doesn't communicate value for you, like if I have to work my ass off, if I have to like blood, sweat, and tears for days on end, stay up late, not spend time with my son, like to get $1,000, to get $2,000, like I have to force myself to do this, to get this money for my family so that I can trade for the value that you create, you know, whatever. Like I'm building houses or something like that, and you know, you make sandwiches or something, and I need to eat, you know, like, so we trade this. You do one job, I do one job, we work together. Now what happens when you can just poof $1 million out of thin air?
Yeah.
Like what happens
especially if I'm maybe somebody who has access to the poofed $1 million
when you have the access to the poof machine?
Now who in our society has the access to that poofed $1 million, as opposed to maybe the guy making the sandwiches?
A lot of people.
Sorry, Brett, you're a sandwich maker tonight.
You look like you make good sandwiches. Yeah. But I refer to them as the counterfeit class. But it's politicians, it's the government, it's massive corporations that essentially partner with this. Like, I mean, you think about like the banking institutions and the financial institutions that just like don't lose. Just like if they fuck up, if they're like horribly irresponsible, if they cheat, if they're fraudulent,
what's referred to sometimes as moral hazard.
They just get bailed out.
Right.
Like, and when we're supposed to think, like, it's hilarious the outrage that we have. It's like, I can't believe that they did this, and it's like, well, you bailed them out, and then they did it again. It's like, well, if you get like patted on the back, like, you know, like if I go, like, if you do something wrong or stupid or terrible, you should go out of business. Like, no one should bail you out. Free markets don't have bailouts.
All right. So ultimately, what is the main negative effect of this poofing of the money? What's happening here when we're poofing money and creating, actually nowadays, trillions of dollars at a time?
So the reason the economy works and the reason like it actually communicates value is because everyone involved in every trade has skin in the game. Is that I actually, going back to the example of me working many days and nights about like just to get a few $1,000s. Well, then when I am spending those few $1,000s, I know what that's worth. Like I know what that cost me. I know what the time that I lost
in labor
to make this happen.
Your blood, sweat, and tears.
Like
so to
like
speak.
I feel the value of that. Now, if somebody just like there's Milton Friedman had a really good a famous economist had a really good way to think about it. Is that there was like this grid as to how to spend money. You can spend money that you made on yourself, like your money on yourself. You can spend your money on somebody else. You can spend somebody else's money on yourself, or you can spend somebody else's money on somebody else. And that there is a degree of like I give a shit in that chart. And
It's the I give a shit matrix.
It's the I give a
Or
shit
not.
matrix. That's what I think about it. Is that if I'm spending somebody else's money on me, I'm much more concerned about the quality of what I get than I am the price.
Right.
If I'm spending my money on somebody else, more worried about what it costs than what the quality of the product. If I'm spending somebody else's money on somebody else, I don't give a shit about anything. Like it just doesn't matter. And essentially, the process of printing money is doing that. I'm stealing a little bit from everybody. But the reason the economy works is because everybody's spending their money.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me how few people actually understand the source of inflation. Like we're all familiar with this concept, like the price of gas goes up, the price of movie tickets goes up.
That's not natural. No good money does that.
That doesn't happen by itself?
No. Never. It would never happen. It should do the exact opposite. It should do what you see in computers. Is that like we see markets that have extraordinary deflation. Is that like my computer goes like plummets in price after like 2 or 3 years because better hard drive space, better CPU. Doesn't stop me from buying a computer. If you ask a politician, they'll say like, no, we need to print money and I need to spend a whole lot of it.
Do you know how much we've printed like over time? When I say we, I mean the United States of America.
Trillions and trillions.
Does anyone here know the answer to this
question? They don't even know. No, we printed $6 trillion in 2020 alone.
All right, the number is so goddamn big, nobody in this entire venue knows the answer to
They
that
can't
question.
even keep tally of it. There's no way to actually measure it because it actually happens within the way the fractional reserve banking system works at the exact same, like on top of the fact that they actually print. And I think it's important to understand too, like there's I did some math in one of my Guys Takes episodes just because to try to wrap your head around what it means for someone to print $6 trillion is the average U.S. citizen over the entire course of their life, all of their hopes, their dreams, their passions, their attempts to do this, their decision to go in this direction in school, their skills, like that I'm going to plan long term to have this career versus this career. Every time they buy, braces for their kids instead of going on vacation, all of these difficult, hard decisions amount to an average of $2 million of productive activity and expenditures that they make over their lifetime.
Wow.
To print. Free market works because they're the ones making the decisions. They guide the economy. That they lower the price of the vacation homes and they raise the price of of braces so that we are producing the things that the people actually need. The people that are actually making skin in the game decisions about what is valuable to them, what is top on their value hierarchy. To print $6 trillion out of thin air and distribute it to a bunch of banks, corporations, a bunch of assholes who committed fraud to an insane degree amounts to deleting 3 million people's entire lives worth of economic influence from existence.
Wow.
They just didn't fucking
This is also known as the Cantillon effect, right?
Yeah.
Basically, it's those closest to the money printer benefit the most from the printing of the money. They get to spend it first, basically, before it goes into the rest of the economy. Okay. All that established, tell me how you really feel, guys. All that established, why is Bitcoin better? Why should, most people come to Bitcoin and they think of it like, okay, well, this is another asset to maybe invest in. Maybe I'm going to get something out of it in US dollar terms at the end of it. It's maybe like a stock or it's like, some other asset. Why is Bitcoin different than all of those things and why does this even matter?
I see the importance of Bitcoin and what it accomplished on a 1,000-year timescale. Is that it's as significant as the rise of coinage in gold and silver. And the reason I think Bitcoin is that significant is because it's a provable correction and incorruptibility in that language that makes society possible. And what's funny is when you're going to the monetization phase of a new asset, like money shifts. If you look through monetary history, which there's 1,000 hours of audio. There's 1,000 hours of red audio on the show to unpack with that.
Bitcoin Audible, look it up.
And Bitcoin Audible. But there's fascinating histories in like when monetary standards clash and when societies who use different monies, like how that thing plays out and how one thing gets monetized and one thing gets demonetized. And typically it happens over about a century. And it's crazy when we move this into the digital space, because I think Bitcoin's going to happen in kind of like a 30 to 40 year time span. I think it'll be
We're
much
already,
more
13
aggressive.
years into
Yeah, we're
it?
13 years in. But I think it's a correction of that language. It's kind of, it's a recognition. Money has always kind of emerged naturally. I mean, it simply has always emerged naturally from just a competition in the market, from trying to find that good that was, or the collectible that was most valued and most divisible. Like there's a great book by Eric, oh my God, I forgot his last name. It's called The Seventh Property. And it's a phenomenal book about like what makes a money, like what have we seen throughout history that makes a good money versus a bad money. And throughout this history, what's funny is that we never knew there's some of these foundational things that happen in society that are so ubiquitous when they arise or when they emerge, is that they're invisible. It's like a fish in water. Like they don't know water exists. Like water just is. You know, money is that way for us. Like we don't think about it. Like it just, when it works, it's just kind of there.
It's kind of like oxygen, right?
Yeah. It's so
you don't think
integrated.
about oxygen as a human unless you don't have any oxygen. That's when it becomes really important, right?
Yeah, until you go to outer space, you're good. But Bitcoin is finally recognizing like what money is as a technology. Like what has emerged, it's that like for the first time we can actually design it. We can actually make it as perfect as possible in all of these different metrics that we recognize as the core things of money.
One last question here.
Yeah.
When you say you can design it, so a lot of people who are new to Bitcoin,
yeah,
they come to this thing and they hear about, well, there's like 5 shadowy supercoders that control all of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
That's a super common belief.
When
you say we can design it, why is it that 5 shadowy supercoders don't actually control Bitcoin?
Well, it was designed, and now everyone runs it. Like there's nobody who can change it really anymore. It's just
Why?
it's like the rules of chess. Like if somebody changed the rules of chess, people would still play old chess.
Okay.
Like if somebody changed the, you know what I mean? Like
yeah. So in other words,
it's a language. Like if you said that love means hate right now, I'd be like, no, it doesn't. Like I wouldn't change that throughout my day.
Right.
And in that same context, when I'm running the Bitcoin software, I am the whole of Bitcoin. Like nobody's running.
But you're one of many people.
Hundreds of thousands.
Right.
Like,
so here's the point. I think.
Yeah.
Is that it's possible to change it. There's actually a campaign to change it. There's people who are like, go change the code. Anyone can change the code. That's the point. Yeah. Anyone can change the code. It's free and open source, meaning any one of us could grab a copy of it, change it, and say, this is the new Bitcoin. Here's the problem with that.
I'm not running that shit.
Exactly. It's like, I came up with this great new idea for Bitcoin, and it's Alex Coin. Guy would be like, screw off. I'm not playing that. Nobody would play Alex Coin. Alex is gonna be by himself in a corner playing Alex Coin.
I mean, there's 10,000
That's
of
the
them.
reason why you can't change it.
That you can just
Does that make sense?
Whatever the hell you want with it.
Okay. Last thing. For the new people here,
yeah.
if there was one thing you could tell somebody who's brand new to Bitcoin, advice you could give them, what would it be? And then we're going to open it up for questions if you guys want to ask questions of either myself or Guy.
Never, ever work hard to get something that somebody else gets for free. Ever.
Amen to that. Don't work for money that another man can create for free. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to Alex Stanczyk and Guy Swan.
Amen.
So the price of Bitcoin goes up,